Hello viewers, Super GT here. So we've had update 1.34 in Gran Turismo Sport. It's added a couple of cars, including this, the Mclaren F1 GTR. Now it's been added into Gr.3 quite interestingly. Now I suppose the main thing you've got to do when they add in these cars to work out whether or not it's OP or just how good it is really. Judging by the top 10 leaderboards, it is a popular choice and it is a fast car. But I will have to drive it for a couple of races just to really see exactly how good it is. And conveniently there is a Group 3 race here at Mount Panorama, so we can actually test out exactly how good it is. Now I've done, what is this, a 12 lap stint here, so around about 25 minutes worth of testing on this car. And the initial conclusion is that it's very, very quick, especially in a straight line. Down the straights here at Mount Panorama, it is just an absolute rocket. Brakes aren't amazing, handling isn't amazing, but it is really quick in a straight line. That is clear. Now, I'm starting on pole position here for this first race, mainly because my sportsmanship rating isn't, or at the time of this race wasn't that high, because of rage quitting or other bad things that I've been doing. So this race was really just a test, as you see here, going into the pits. At the end of lap 5, it is a one-stop race this. I was 8 seconds ahead by this point. So really this is just a test, which is actually quite convenient. So I can just kind of see exactly how good the car is for this race. And you got here this central seating position, which is something that the car is quite well known for. The fact that the seat is directly in the centre of the car, which is quite cool actually. Now at the end of the race, winning the race by nearly 13 seconds. And with a time of, well, actually below 19 minutes, which is actually fairly decent. So our 93rd victory, but up against the big boys now, so we can actually put our proper skills to the test, hopefully. Starting in 7th, and we have a couple of different cars here, so we can really test how it compares up against some regular, if you like, Group 3 cars. So we've got the Beetle on pole position, interestingly, and we've got a Corvette just in front, and a Jaguar just behind us on the grid. So you can really test exactly how good this thing is as we come uphill around Mount Panorama. Now the thing about this car, it really reminds me of when the Ford GT got added into the game last year. So that car was really good at really good at straight line speed, and had not great brakes and sort of average handling. And this car kind of feels the same to me in that respect. It's very similar in that respect. So a bit of contact here, got a little bit close for comfort as we go across the top of the hill. Now Mount Panorama is a really good example for testing all of these things, because of course you have this twisty section here which really tests the handling of the car, but then you've also got some really good really big braking zones and also some really long straights, so you can really test everything around this track. So it's a kind of an ideal place to go to really see exactly how quick this car is. Now there's lots of McLaren F1s in front. Of course they've got the Corvette directly in front. We can see exactly how much quicker this McLaren F1 is here. As I'm tucking in the slipstream, the Corvette is of course in the slipstream of the cars ahead, so I'm only just going to get alongside, looking for that 150 board, braking just before. Corvette's still on the inside. You can see I'm a little bit wide. I'm going to go onto the grass and come back on. Corvette goes back around the outside, so that kind of shows you it's a good demonstration of the brakes not being absolutely amazing, but the top speed is most certainly there. And in some cases you'll see, you may well have seen if you've raced this car around this track, that it can really get past some other cars very, very quickly. It's sometimes got like 10 miles an hour more down the straights, and if you're in the slipstream, it's just not even a competition. You are just going to go flying past. So a couple of mistakes here, lap 2 now, and Magic Mike's going to go flying through. So clumsy mistakes. Now the car isn't great in terms of turning in. It feels a little bit cumbersome on the way into the turns, so you do have to kind of compensate for that. Getting a penalty here, 2.9 seconds, just cutting slightly, sort of the downhill left-hander, just going slightly all 4 wheels beyond the white lines, probably by a pixel. It was that close. Okay, so coming down the hill then, and we've got a big train of cars. Is Magic Mike actually going to be able to go through up the inside? I think he's going to try to do exactly what I did on the previous lap, as he does, going through the kink then, and there's contact between the two of them. Corvette is wide onto the grass, and as we go into the apex, he's going to come flying back on. with a great revenge move. Well, it looked like that anyway. Let's have a look at that again, because that was beautiful stuff. So there is contact. It looks like, it's hard to say exactly, as they kind of meet in the middle, but then they most certainly meet in the middle here again. So a great little moment to laugh at there. And, well, it helped me out because I gained 2 positions as a result. Back into, or up into 6th position as we cross the line at the end of lap number 2. So this race here typically is going to be a one-stop race. You're going to have to stop once. You can't do a no-stop unless you mega fuel save, which just really is not the best way to go. Let's come down the hill then. Just really trying to drive the car within its limits. I think if you push it too much through here, you just really are asking for trouble. Asking for death, and I've just asked for death again by cutting that stupid corner. Now, I did like 12 laps of practice and I didn't cut that corner once, and then in the race I seem to be doing it multiple times, which is something very silly. Now the thing here, you can see the car ahead doesn't have the slipstream of the car ahead, so you can of the car ahead of him or her, so you see exactly how much speed difference there's going to be. He's not getting the slipstream. I am over 180 miles an hour. This is virtually unheard of coming down there in any car in Group 3. He's gone a little bit high. He actually managed to keep that one around the outside. That's a really good move to keep his position there. Is he going to go into the pits? No. So I'm going to go in for the undercut. Typically just kind of do the opposite of what the car ahead does. So we're going to go in at the end of lap number 4. So you can do a 4-lap stint, then a 5-lap stint, or of course a 5, then a 4. Or a 3 and then a 6, or a 6 and then a 3. There's lots of options available, really. I've gone for the 4 and then the 9. Oh, sorry, the 4 and then the 5. So we get the undercut. We will have the slightly more worn out tyres towards the end of the race, which is something to think about. So 1 lap later, or the end of lap number 5, so everyone else is going in for their stop now. So let's see if that's kind of turned the race into our favour. We were battling for 5th. We can see exactly how this one pans out. So Quintin just up ahead, he also went for the undercut end of lap 4 pit strategy. Through turn 1 onto the first long straight, and we're up into 5th place quite clearly, quite convincingly, and in fact got nearly a 3-second gap to the Swiss driver behind, who's driving the Corvette. So that's actually worked out really well. And even though I've got a 6.2 second penalty, there is a possibility that I could still finish in 5th, because of course serving a 6.2 second penalty, if you serve that on the finish line, you're probably only going to lose maybe 3 seconds or 2.5, I would estimate. Normally it's about half the time that you actually lose if you serve it on the finish line. So coming up the hill then, let's see if we can have a solid lap here. Of course we have actually got grip now. We've come in for the fresh tyres. So really tricky section this. But actually in this car, so despite not being, it's not the best handling car, but it's actually, it's still fairly easy to drive. It's not like it's sliding all over the place. It is a bit clunky. It feels a little bit heavy, but it's fairly manageable and it's quite easy to control still. So that is still a strength. So through the mountain section, despite it being quite a heavy and clunky car, you can still get around there quite easily without sliding around all over the place. So this car is definitely going to be a really strong car. I'm just looking forward to seeing how it performs at twisty circuits, as I just run 2 wheels beyond the line there and kind of the camber drops off and it really doesn't help you. So despite having that big gap to 6th, you can see there just how small the gap got, and at the end I actually forget where the bloody finish line here is, and I drop all the way down to 8th. So I really should have been 5th, but I finished 8th. And actually it turns out that the Beetle is the best car. Look at that, Beetle winning the race. So forget everything I said about this car being OP. The Beetle is the best car in Group 3. Forget everything about this car. You can basically forget about the McLaren F1 now. It's all about the Beetle. Okay, 8th place, not the greatest, because we really had a good potential there to finish in 5th. But this race here, we're going to start in 5th and see if we can move forward from there, as we have a couple of similar players that we had in the previous race. Let's see if we can go about finishing in a higher position than normal, which is normally an aim for me. You know, if you qualify whichever position you qualify, you're always trying to move forward from there if you can at all do that. So coming down the hill then into the tight left, and it's getting a little bit argy-bargy, as it tends to do, especially in this kind of car. as everyone's so close up behind each other. So coming down the back straight, the Conrod straight towards the chase. Let's see if this one can manifest itself into a move. Can't really go for the move because he's got the slipstream of the guys ahead. So we're just going to be patient here. Braking just before the 150 board and clipping that apex nicely as we go into the chase. Coming down towards the final turn then. Going to try to keep him narrow and try to upset his balance on the way through the turn and get him on the way out. But I kind of just nudge him on the way in. I kind of just misjudged it. So I'm going to stick behind for now and try to fight later on in the race. And you might have noticed I went down into lean setting 6 on the back straight. So of course this race, it really is about fuel as well. So the tyres are not too bad actually on the later laps of the stint. It's really about the fuel. That's where the problems really are. Egathon there going into the wall on the way through, and I was trying to find a way past, but I couldn't really get the job done. He was so close to me that I couldn't really pick away past quite easily. I had to really react very quickly, but I couldn't quite do it. But you see here, now he doesn't have the slipstream of the person ahead of him, so now he's a sitting duck down this back straight. So let's see just how quick this car can go. So topping out 170 miles an hour as we pull out to the side and almost getting to 180. Yes, we just touched 180 miles an hour through the kink, which is again virtually unheard of. You just don't see that from any other car in Group 3. It's actually quite ridiculous. So he's going to come back at me into the final turn, going slightly defensive, as he was I think briefly alongside, so I couldn't quite go over to the right hand side. Up into 4th position, so we've gained a position. Unfortunately all that battling though has kind of opened up the gap up ahead, so the gap now to 3rd is 2.5 seconds. So the gap opening up, and not a good turn 1. This car kind of got unsettled through the apex of the turn. Let's whiz forward, getting into turn number 2. I think you really do have to get the car pointed in nice and early. So a lot of cars, I suppose in Group 3 you kind of get used to how the cars handle, but this one really does handle quite a lot differently. And you do have to get that nose in early, which I obviously haven't done there. I think you have to turn in a little bit earlier than you really kind of are used to with other Group 3 cars. But I really do enjoy actually using this car. It's a good car that they've added into the game, and it kind of is a mismatch in some ways, because obviously a lot of the Group 3 cars are kind of all modern, GT cars from the last sort of 5 years, whereas this obviously from the 90s, it was in GT1 class. It's a lot different. It's a different kind of car, so it might be a mismatch in some ways. I suppose in a similar way that you've got the Group C cars and then the LMP1 cars in Group 1, and they kind of are a mismatch in some ways. I suppose it isn't too bad, and I suppose around some of the twistier circuits we'll see exactly how this car performs. So I don't think this car will be the best car at most circuits. Around Le Mans it will be, and I've just made a massive mistake there, really big mistake, clipping the curb, and maybe this car isn't great around the curbs either, and through the kink, just grazing the curb, really unsettled the car, and when you're sliding sideways on your braking zone, you're not going to be braking as quickly as you possibly can. So I've gone to the grass, and I've gone for a really good position of 4th, down to 11th. So we've got it all to do now. Let's see if we can do it. What can we do? What can we conjure up? What kind of magic can Super GT conjure up from here to the end of the race? So we've still got half the race left to go. We can test out the overtaking facilities here. So once again, the BMW is going to be in the slipstream of the cars ahead. So it's quite an important aspect of the race around Mount Panorama. Are you in the slipstream of the car ahead coming down the straight? Because you really are going to gain a lot of time by doing that. So once I get in the slipstream of the cars ahead, you see how easily I sail by the BMW. It's like he just let off the throttle. That's how much of a difference there is in the speed. Coming into the turn here, a little bit late on the brakes. I've gone into the back of the Belgian guy, and I'm just going to have to I've unsettled him. I'm going to have to kind of back off here. I'm going to do the opposite of what the guys ahead do, so they all go in, so I'm going to stay out. Typically I like to go for the sort of alternative strategy to whatever the other guys ahead do. So I'm up into 4th, which is where I was, I suppose, so that's not too bad. We can still kind of conjure something up. We can still regain some positions here because of the fuel strategy, so it's not completely over just yet. So later on in the lap, end of lap number 5 now, so we're going to come in. So we've still got the BMW hot on our tail, just behind. So I would have towed him down that straight, most certainly. into the pit lane we go, whacking on the medium tyres, and 62%. You can roughly get away with about 15% of fuel per lap in this car, and you can short shift it quite a lot. So I think the main thing here about this car is, yes, it's very, very quick in a straight line. What about the fuel and the tyres though? That's quite a crucial thing. I think on the tyres it's not too bad. It wears out the front slightly faster than the backs, so your front end is going to start disappearing a little bit quicker than the rear end grip. And in terms of the fuel, it's actually really not too bad. I was expecting it to be just awful, just plain awful on the fuel. It's actually really not too bad at all. I did this race in, was it not the Lexus? In another, I think it was the BMW M6. I did this race in the BMW M6, and that car was really bad on fuel compared to the McLaren. So this car is actually not too bad on fuel at all. So all round it's actually a solid car. It's just the overall handling, I think, and the braking isn't that great. So at this point here, up behind Magic Mike, we found ourselves up into 7th. So I definitely saved time in the pit stop window. So I was fuel saving quite a lot in the first stint, and that resulted in quite a lot of time saved in the pit lane. So I'm up to 7th. Was 11th after the crash, or the excursion through the chase, but now back up to 7th with 6th place looming large. We've got a yellow flag, not sure who that is for, I can't see anything. We've still got the yellow flag. In fact I've actually gone up into 6th position, and we're now fighting for 5th. So someone has clearly, I think it was the British guy who was fighting for the lead, or was the pole sitter in fact. I think that guy must have quit, because I've gained, well, we've all gained a position here, and now we're going to gain another position up into 5th. Just go onto the radar to see exactly where this guy is. I think he's still got his nose alongside, and have to give him a car width on the inside, and then settle into the position. There we go, clipping the apex nicely. Job done with 1 lap left to go. 5th position. Obviously it's disappointing because we should really be in 4th, possibly 3rd. In fact, we should be in 3rd by now because of, we was ahead of Max Power, who is in 3rd, so we possibly should be there without that excursion earlier in the race. But recovering to 5th here is not too bad at all, given that we were 11th. Can we keep the position with 1 lap left to go? We're on lap number 9 of 9, so just under a lap left to go. And of course I still have to consider the fuel saving, so there's lots to think about on this lap as we head into turn number 2, Quarry Bend. Quite an important turn that, I think, and it's very easy to get wrong. You really do have to hug the inside and get on the power early. And going wide once again. In fact, this time actually using a cheeky wall riding technique. In fact, I didn't really mean to do that at all. It's just I went way too wide, and actually the wall kind of helped me round inadvertently. So cheeky little wall ride there. PGR3 flashbacks intensify as we come across the top of the hill. I think the highest point is here as we go over this crest into this left hand, and then we begin the descent. The really dangerous descent here, really hard to get right, but just making sure you drive within the car. I think the best thing to do around here is just really not to push too hard, just really make sure you keep it within the limits. And actually the guy ahead with how much is that, 2.6 second penalty, there is a chance here that we could actually still gain a position. So he's in 4th, 1.2 seconds ahead, 1.3 seconds ahead. There is a chance I could still get this as we come around the final turn up towards the line. He moves over to the left hand side to serve that penalty. Let's see if we can get it. And yes, we can. We get our 4th position. So he actually still, yeah, he crossed the line with still some penalty left, and it's cost him that 4th position. And you can see there the McLaren dominating the race, dominating the leaderboard with the M6 there in 3rd position. So that brings a close to the video. Let me know your thoughts on the new McLaren F1 GTR. I actually really like using it, but we'll see exactly how good it is around all the circuits. That is all from me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, of course, to all my Patreon supporters, all my channel members, and just for everyone for tuning in for all the videos. Much appreciated as always. I shall see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.